Describe a job that one of your grandparents did.
Okay.
You should say, what was the job about? Was this only the one job she or he did, and how you felt about it?
Got it.
Okay.
So now imagine that I'm the test taker and I'm going to read a Band-Aid response.
Okay.
Okay. So here we go. I'd like to talk about my grandfather who worked as a farmer. His job mainly involved growing crops, such as rice and vegetables on the farmland near his village.
Okay.
Farming was the only profession he pursued throughout his life.
Right.
He started working on the family farm at a young age and continued until he was too old to manage the physical labor.
Interesting.
In addition to growing crops, he also raised livestock like cows and chickens, which provided additional income and food for the family.
Right.
Makes sense. I feel a deep sense of admiration for my grandfather because farming is a challenging job that demands hard work, patience, and resilience.
Mm-hmm.
His dedication ensured that our family always had enough to eat, and he also taught us valuable life lessons about perseverance and respect for nature.
Okay, so that was a pretty solid part 2 answer.
Yeah, I think so.
Clear response answered all parts of the question.
Yeah.
So now we're going to move on to part 3.
Right.
Where the examiner asks some follow-up questions related to the topic.
Okay, so this is where things get a little more well-rounded.
Yeah, a little bit more abstract. All right, so examiner speaking, what are the advantages of having an elderly person at home?
Okay, so again, I'm the test taker. Elderly family members provide valuable life lessons, wisdom, and emotional support.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, they can help younger generations make important decisions by sharing their own experiences.
Right?
They also play a key role in passing down traditions, such as teaching grandchildren about cultural festivals and family values.
Okay, good. So you've moved nicely from the specific example of your grandfather to talking about elderly people in general.
Right.
Okay, so next question. Examiner speaking. Is there anything that older people should learn from the younger generation?
Okay, so as the test taker, yes, older people can learn modern skills from younger generations, particularly related to technology.
Mm-hmm.
For example, they can learn to use smartphones, social media, or online banking, which can make their lives more convenient.
Mm-hmm.
This also helps them stay connected with family members who live far away.
Okay, great. So that's a very relevant point.
Yeah.
And again, you've used a specific example to illustrate your point. All right, examiner speaking. What can the younger generation learn from the older generation?
Okay, so for this one, younger individuals can learn valuable qualities such as patience, resilience, and problem solving from older generations.
Mm-hmm.
For example, grandparents often share personal stories about overcoming hardships, which can inspire younger people to handle challenges with a positive mindset.
Mm.
They can also teach traditional skills like cooking, sewing, or farming.
Okay, great. So you've covered a good range of ideas there.
Yeah.
All right, examiner speaking, what qualities does a person need to take care of old people?
Okay, I'm ready. Caring for elderly individuals requires patience, kindness, and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, caregivers should listen to their concerns, help them with daily tasks like cooking or shopping, and provide emotional support.
Okay.
It is also important to be understanding and respectful towards their needs and preferences.
Good.
That was a long one.
It was, but it's a complex topic.
That's true.
So it requires a more developed answer.
All right, next question.
Okay, examiner speaking, do you think elderly people should be allowed to work?
Here we go.
Yeah.
Yes, if they are healthy and willing. Elderly people should be allowed to work as it keeps them active and mentally engaged.
Mm-hmm.
For example, they can take up part-time jobs, mentor young professionals, or even run small businesses.
Right.
However, their workload should be manageable to avoid health complications.
Okay, good. You've considered both sides of the argument there.
Right.
Okay, examiner speaking, do you think that elderly people should be taken care of at home?
Okay, this one's a little tricky.
Yeah.
Yes, taking care of elderly people at home is beneficial because it provides them with a comfortable and familiar environment.
Uh-huh.
Being surrounded by family members also helps them feel loved and reduces loneliness.
Right.
However, if they have serious medical conditions, professional care might be necessary.
Okay, good. Again, you've acknowledged that there are sometimes situations
Yeah,
where home care might not be the best option.
that's right.
All right, next question, examiner speaking. Why do old people today live longer than in the past?
Okay, so here's the answer. Old people live longer today because of advancements in healthcare, better nutrition, and improved living conditions.
Okay.
For example, medical treatments for heart diseases and diabetes have become more effective, and people are more aware of the importance of a healthy diet and regular exercise.
Great.
Okay, last one.
Okay, last question, examiner speaking. Are the attitudes of young people today towards old people the same as they used to be years ago?
Here's the answer. No attitudes have changed due to modern lifestyles.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, young people spent more time with their elders and followed traditions strictly.
Right.
Nowadays, many young people are busy with work or technology and may not interact with older family members as much.
Mm-hmm.
However, in many cultures, elders are still highly respected.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of the Band 8 simulation.
Yeah.
I think you did a great job there.
Thanks.
It's very fluent, clear pronunciation, good vocabulary.
Thank you.
Answer to all parts of the question.
Appreciate it.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to the exact same questions, but this time with Band 9 responses.
Okay.
So as you're listening, really try to tune in to how the explanations might be a bit more developed and how the vocabulary might be a little more precise.
Okay, so I'm going to be the examiner again,
Okay.
and you're going to be the test taker.
Right.
All right, so here we go. Describe a job that one of your grandparents did.
Okay.
You should say, what was the job about? Was this only the one job she or he did, and how you felt about it?
All right, so I'd like to describe my grandmother's profession as a school teacher.
Oh,
She dedicated over 30 years of her life to teaching primary school students in her village and was highly respected by the community.
interesting.
Her job involved not only delivering lessons, but also mentoring young minds, instilling discipline, and encouraging students to pursue their dreams.
Okay.
However, teaching was not her only responsibility. She also managed household duties alongside her professional career. In addition to her school job, she often tutored children from underprivileged backgrounds who couldn't afford extra classes.
Right.
I deeply admire my grandmother for her unwavering dedication to education and her ability to balance work and family life effortlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Her passion for teaching has inspired many students in her village, including me, to appreciate the value of education and strive for academic excellence.
Okay, so you can already hear some differences there
Yeah.
in the vocabulary and the sentence structure.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on to part 3.
Okay.
What are the advantages of having an elderly person at home?
Okay, so elderly family members offer invaluable wisdom, emotional support, and guidance based on their life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, they often act as mentors, helping younger generations navigate personal and professional challenges.
Hmm.
Their presence also fosters a sense of stability and strengthens family bonds through meaningful interactions and shared traditions.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Is there anything that older people should learn from the younger generation?
Absolutely. Older individuals can benefit from adapting to modern technology, evolving social norms, and contemporary communication methods.
Okay.
For example, learning to use smartphones and online services can enhance their independence and allow them to stay connected with family members across the globe.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, what can the younger generation learn from the older generation?
Okay. The younger generation can learn essential life values such as perseverance, patience, and cultural heritage from older family members.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, grandparents often share stories about historical events or personal struggles, providing valuable insights into resilience and problem solving.
Right.
Additionally, they can pass down traditional skills such as craftsmanship, cooking, or farming techniques.
Okay, great. What qualities does a person need to take care of old people?
Providing care for elderly individuals requires a combination of empathy, patience, and attentiveness. For example, a caregiver should be able to understand their emotional and physical needs while assisting with daily activities such as medication management, mobility support, or companionship.
Okay.
Strong communication skills and a nurturing attitude are also essential.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do you think elderly people should be allowed to work?
Yes, Elderly individuals should have the opportunity to work if they are physically capable and willing.
Okay.
Employment keeps them mentally and socially active, reducing feelings of isolation.
Hmm.
However, jobs should be tailored to their abilities, such as consultancy roles, mentoring, or part-time teaching, to ensure they remain engaged without excessive strain.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Do you think that elderly people should be taken care of at home?
Ideally, elderly people should receive care at home as it provides them with comfort, emotional security, and a familiar environment.
Mm.
Being surrounded by loved ones can significantly improve their mental and emotional well-being.
Okay.
However, in cases where specialized medical care is required, professional nursing facilities may be a more suitable option.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, why do old people today live longer than in the past?
Advancements in medical technology, improved healthcare services, and better living conditions have significantly increased life expectancy.
Right.
For example, access to vaccinations, early diagnosis of diseases, and lifestyle awareness programs have contributed to healthier aging.
Hmm.
Additionally, better nutrition and exercise routines have played a key role in prolonging life.
Okay. Yeah.
Last one, are the attitudes of young people today towards old people the same as they used to be years ago?
Not entirely.
Ah.
While respect for elders remains a core value in many cultures, changing lifestyles and increased reliance on technology have reduced direct interactions between generations. However, initiatives such as intergenerational programs and family bonding activities are helping bridge the gap and foster stronger relationships between young and old family members.
Okay, wow. So that was the full Band 9 simulation.
Yeah.
I mean, I can definitely hear the difference.
Yeah, definitely more complex sentence structures.
Yeah.
A wider range of vocabulary.
Sad.
More idiomatic language.
Yeah.
So let's break down some of the specific grammar and vocabulary choices that contribute to these different band scores.
Okay.
Starting with the Band-Aid examples.
All right, so then in the Band 8 responses, particularly when I was describing my grandfather's job as a farmer,
Right.
we hear that very clear use of the past, simple tense, worked, started,
Mm-hmm.
to talk about those completed actions in the past.
Right.
And then the past continuous, mainly involved growing to describe, that ongoing activity.
Right.
And that's, good control of those basic past tenses.
Yeah, exactly. And it helps to create that narrative flow.
Right.
You've got a clear timeline of events.
Exactly. And also, we hear those linking words like, in addition to, also, however,
Mm-hmm.
which is really good for connecting different pieces of information.
Right. And that's really important for coherence and cohesion, which is one of the assessment criteria.
Yes, absolutely.
So, making those connections between ideas within a sentence or between sentences, it just makes the response flow more logically.
Right. So in terms of the vocabulary in that Band 8 Part 2 response,
Yeah.
words like, mainly involved or pursued
Mm-hmm.
to describe his career,
Mm-hmm.
manage the physical labor, I mean, these are all appropriate choices.
Yeah. They're relevant to the context.
Yeah.
They convey the meaning clearly.
Yeah, and when I was talking about my feelings about my grandfather,
Yeah.
words like admiration and dedication, I mean, those are relevant and understandable.
Right. And they show a certain level of emotional range,
Yeah.
which is good.
And then we also hear those abstract nouns,
Yeah.
like resilience and perseverance, which definitely make the description a little bit more sophisticated.
Exactly. They add a bit more depth to the description of his character.
Right.
Okay, so moving on to the Band 8 Part 3 answers.
Okay.
You use conditional clauses correctly, like if they are healthy and willing,
Right.
which, demonstrates that grammatical control.
Yeah. And you used common phrases for giving examples like, for instance, and for example, which, helps to clarify those points.
Absolutely, and the vocabulary stayed pretty appropriate,
Yeah.
covering a range of topics related to elderly people,
Right.
like wisdom, emotional support, passing down traditions. And when we were talking about technology, that word convenient was used effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's switch gears now and talk about the Band 9 responses.
Okay.
So immediately we hear that the grammar is just more intricate. in that part 2 description of the grandmother, I
Yeah.
think you said something like her job involved not only delivering lessons, but also mentoring young minds, instilling discipline, and encouraging students to pursue their dreams.
Right.
So that not only, but also structure. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a really good sign of someone who has strong grammatical ability.
Exactly. It shows that they can handle more complex sentence structures.
Yeah.
And they can combine multiple ideas within a single sentence.
Yeah.
Without, making it sound clunky or awkward.
Right. And the vocabulary, I mean, right away, it just stands out.
Yeah, definitely.
Instead of just saying, worked as a teacher,
Right.
you said dedicated over 30 years of her life.
Mm-hmm.
That verb dedicated just has a lot more weight to it.
Right. It shows a much deeper level of commitment.
Yeah. And then words like mentoring, instilling discipline, encouraging students to pursue their dreams.
Right.
I mean, these are just so much more precise.
Yeah, they're more evocative than just using simpler alternatives.
Yeah. And then describing her dedication as unwavering.
Yes.
And her ability to handle work and family as effortlessly. I mean, that adds nuance.
Yeah, it creates a more vivid image of her personality.
Yeah. And then that phrase, underprivileged backgrounds, I mean, that's a lot more specific and sophisticated.
Right. It shows a greater awareness of social issues.
Yeah.
Okay. And as we move into those Part 3 Band 9 answers,
Yeah.
you used more sophisticated linking phrases like invaluable wisdom. Right. Which is a lot stronger than just saying valuable life lessons.
Right.
And then the phrase fosters a sense of stability.
Yeah.
That's a more formal and nuanced way of talking about the impact of elderly people.
And when we were talking about technology, you used the phrase enhance their independence.
Right.
Which is a lot stronger than just making life more convenient.
Exactly. It emphasizes the positive impact on their autonomy and their ability to live a fulfilling life.
And you know what I noticed too?
Yeah.
Is that in the Band 9 answers, you were using vocabulary to really paint like a picture. For example, instead of just saying, caregivers need to help with tasks.
Right.
You said medication management, mobility support, or companionship.
Yeah.
Those specific examples just show a much deeper understanding.
Exactly. It goes beyond just a general statement.
Yeah.
It provides those concrete details.
And I love that phrase, nurturing attitude.
Yeah, that adds a really nice touch.
Yeah.
It shows that you understand the emotional aspect of caregiving.
Yes. And then when we were talking about work, you suggested roles like consultancy and mentoring. Again, very specific and tailored.
Right. They're much more appropriate for the skills and experience of older people.
Yes.
And what's really interesting here is that it's not just about using bigger or more complicated words.
Yeah.
It's about choosing the most precise word to convey your meaning.
Right.
So, you're not just using a thesaurus to find a synonym.
Right.
You're actually thinking about the nuances of each word.
Yeah.
And how it fits into the context.
And that's really what shines through in those Band 9 responses.
Absolutely. It shows that you have a deep understanding of the language.
So for everyone listening, if you want to get that higher band score in the IELTS speaking test, what are some key takeaways here?
Well, I think it's clear that moving from a Band 8 to a Band 9, it's not just about avoiding mistakes.
Yeah.
It's about using a wider range of grammatical structures, using them accurately and naturally, and employing a much richer and more precise vocabulary.
Yes.
So that you can express complex ideas with clarity and sophistication.
And it's about sounding natural and effortless.
Exactly.
Like you are truly comfortable with the language.
Right. And the Band 9 examples really showed a speaker who not only understood the questions, but could also really articulate their thoughts in a nuanced and compelling way.
Right.
And that's what the examiners are looking for.
Okay. So we've come to the end of our deep dive.
We have.
Into these Band 8 and Band 9 IELTS speaking exam responses.
Right.
We listened to those simulations back to back, which allowed us to really do that direct comparison.
Right, and we've unpacked, some of the grammar and vocabulary choices.
Yeah.
That can make all the difference.
And so now I want to leave you with a final question.
Okay.
When you think about how you communicate, How consciously are you choosing your words?
Right.
Are you varying your sentence structures
Mm-hmm.
to express, more complex ideas?
Right. Because sometimes we get stuck in a rut,
You do?
using the same phrases over and over again.
Yeah.
So think about where you can, you know, stretch yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Use more precise language,
Yes.
more sophisticated grammar.
And it's not just for the IELTS exam.
Right.
It's for life.
Exactly.
The better you are at communicating,
Mm-hmm.
the more effectively you can express yourself.
Right. In any situation.
So that's something to think about.
It is food for thought.
It is. All right. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
It's been great having you on the deep dive.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see everyone next time.
See you later.